Welcome to Extra Takes, hosted by Northland Church Senior Pastor, Dr. Joshua Laxton. Join us each week as Pastor Josh reveals the rest of the story behind his sermons. We'll discuss how those who follow Christ can live out a biblical vision for the church in our world today.
Well, hello, Northland family and friends. Hey, welcome to another episode of Extra Takes. Hey, I'm your co-host, PJ, along with Matt, and we are coming to you from the digital realm. We're using Zoom today because we record, as many of you know, on Monday, and so it just worked out better for us to do it via Zoom. But hey, you still get to see our lovely faces, and you get to see at least the background of our humble domains. So, anyways, Matt.
Every week, I'm just on pins and needles waiting to hear how you introduce us and where you take us. Our humble domains. I think that's a first for this podcast.
Humble domain.
Did you know that we're coming up on episode 200?
Wow, 200.
We're close to like 190.
Goodness. You know, we got to get the data of how many people have grown, like far as our Northland audience. We do need to get those numbers.
The numbers from beginning to, what it's looked like grown-wise, yeah.
Or if it's strong. So
yeah, maybe we don't.
I do get people that they like, and so they come up to me, hey man, we are so grateful for Extra Takes. We learn so much. We listen all the time. So hey, we're grateful.
Yeah, there's quantitative.
That's why we do it. I mean, we don't want to waste our time.
There's quantitative data and qualitative data.
Yeah.
And we hear the qualitative data so much, so many stories of how you're growing. I mean, this is a discipleship opportunity. And I know so many of you use this as a way for you by yourself, you and your spouse to just really think deeper about the sermon and take these truths to heart. Because every single week there's a lot here. And it's hard to just pop in and pop out and actually put some of this into practice if we're not spending additional time. And that's what this does for us.
Yeah. Well, you know, like even this message this past weekend, you know, I'm like, gosh, like again, there's so much there, and there's so much from an understanding level of how do we love, you know, because we have the brokenness which we bring to the table, and so we're at least reflecting some element of that broken love, then redeeming love. Okay, what is that? You know, how are we going to really allow the redeeming love of God to not only come into our life, but kind of flow through our life? Like, this is like real stuff. This is, I mean, you know, like it's just not a biblical lesson. You know, it's not just, hey, that was really good. It was entertaining. No, it's like, man, how does this intersect our life?
Yeah.
And then, you know, with the podcast, though, there's so much even here that I couldn't even cover. I mean, like so much, like, because this passage is, I mean, it's very disturbing to some people. Like, if you don't know the Bible, and like actually had two people, they were new to Northland, and I think even new to church, because it was kind of Mother's Day. I think they were invited. One was kind of an older, when I say older, younger single. And then another one was a mom. I think she brought her kids in there, you know, I can't remember. But she's like, man, that, gosh, what the heck? What, you know, like that was a crazy story, you know, and it's kind of like, yeah, it is. I mean, the Bible is actually full of those crazy stories. And so you can't even really, it just reminded me is like, man, how, like I mean, because I'm always trying to think of somebody who's never heard, what can they take away? Now, again, she said she got the gist of it. She even said, man, I guess women still do the same thing today. You know, they fight one another. They're green with, you know, like,
yeah.
They're very envious and jealous of others. She was quoting hip hop. So I'm like, that's true. Yes. Yeah. So she took away something, but it was like, okay, man, like, it's a completely different context and culture, the Bible, and then to try to, in some sense, transliterate it. That's a heavy, in certain messages, that's a heavy lift to do that.
Well, there's, I think, a maturity and also the spirit working when you can have a hard truth and somebody recognizes, hey, this hard truth is from the Bible and from the Lord, and not necessarily, the deliverer's intent because sometimes we can point at, oh, why do you have to bring this to us and blah blah blah. But you're like, I'm preaching straight from the Bible, and this jacked up story, this family, I didn't make it up.
Yeah.
Didn't come
Well,
from
that's right.
me.
Like I tried to again try to have fun, be relevant. When I say I say
Yeah.
contextually relevant, while also stressing what the Bible is saying, while also trying to keep it somewhat, political. Why I say that? Not necessarily politically correct, but not being so graphic. And
Yeah.
and that's
It,
always the balance on stories like this, or stories like David and Bathsheba, stories like Noah and the flood. I mean, these are, I mean, like they're very very messy stories.
yeah, you were not graphic, but it was still jacked up, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just think about the 12 tribes of Israel, those 12 sons from four women.
Four women.
Whoa, I know.
Well, and if you think about it, four women with Jacob, but then you take somebody like Solomon, and that
Hmm.
sucker had like 700 wives and 300 concubines. It's like, I mean, you had one woman for every day
Mm.
for almost 3 years, or
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
3 years. So,
Yeah,
what's your name again? I mean, just like that's just whack. I mean, it's just
yeah,
well, I say it's whacked out for our culture, and that culture be like, wow, look at Solomon, man, goodness,
yeah. It's challenging, but I'm excited for us to dig into this and see what else we can learn and discern from this message. This is Genesis making sense of mission, and the title is Wrong Love, Right Love. We were in Genesis 29 and then part of Genesis 30, May 9th, 10th, and 11th. You get to do it one more time tonight.
there you go.
So the main point that we will have for several weeks is joining God on mission equals journeying with Him in redemption. And this is our second leg. So we can think of this as a mini series. So if you miss a piece of the mini series, go back and because we're doing a whole character arc on Jacob. This is the second leg, and this is journeying with God, and redemption involves understanding wrong love wrecks wounds in wars, and right love redeems, renews, and restores. That's pretty good. I like the rhyming, Dr. Seuss. You know, I listen to this and I'm like, oh, he's proud of that one. That one's good. I like that.
Well, I mean, again, this is where, like, so, again, here's my notebook.
Yeah.
I keep all the notes in. Um, and so, when I go through it, so I have, so there's a love triangle with all,
Mm,
with many issues, intoxicated by lust. He says he'll work 7 years. 7 years fly by. He wakes up the next morning. He's surprised. He's angry. Laban says isn't
mm,
our custom. And then you got Rachel through Bilhah. You got God, remember, and then I start writing down all of the names, and then Laban put his daughter in a precarious position. There's competitions between sisters, performance for love and affection, what you live by, and for you can be crushed by, and for the use and abuse of women. Like I'm writing all of this down as I'm reading the story. Again, just taking notes, and then you're like, okay, how do you put this together? Because this is and then when you look at, so if you have a highlighter, and so, and you're reading a passage like that,
mm,
so, and again, you start in verse, what is it, 14. Then,
hmm
so in verse 18, you see Jacob was in love. Then in verse 20, it says, because of his love for her. In verse 21, it says, I want to make love to her. And then in verse 30, Jacob made love to Rachel, and his love for Rachel was greater than his love for Leah. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me because the Lord heard that I am not loved. So you have this theme. I mean, the Bible is literally telling you the theme right here is love.
Yeah.
Okay, so now here's what I've done. I've taken notes of all of these things that are happening in the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I'm looking at this theme, this word that I keep seeing over and over and over in the text. And so when I'm highlighting it, I'm like, oh my gosh. So the author literally wants us to know something about love here.
Mm.
And so that's where you then put it together and go, okay, well, and then you see where that it says, so when the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, and then at the very end, I will praise the Lord. So here's the thing that means that she's finally understood that God has actually been showing her
Mm.
that He loves her,
Mm.
uh, and that she receives it, and that's where she's satisfied. Now, it doesn't mean that again she's perfect because she's going to war with her sister too. I mean,
Yeah.
but it nevertheless shows us
Mm.
that here's wrong love. This is what it does, and this is actually right love, and this is what it does. So that's how this message went down in terms of, and it's usually how again I do all of the messages. I have a little notebook where I'm reading the passage, I'm jotting down notes, I'm trying to see a theme
Mm.
emerge. I'm doing the same for this coming week's message when
Mm.
you look at Jacob and basically livestock type stuff, and that's fascinating. But you actually see a theme really
Mm.
emerge as you take notes and dwell on it and go, okay, all right, what's here? And then as you see this theme, then you're like, how do I communicate this thing in a way where people can digest it?
Yeah, that's fascinating. So as you're reading through and you see this theme of love coming up, yeah, I think quickly you see that love is being used in different ways, right? It's not being used in the same way, and that's where I can see you get the wrong love and right love.
Yeah. And
As
then
you're reading,
obviously I've talked about love before, which is why I brought
yeah,
out the old chart
yeah,
of three elements of love.
yeah,
So now I have a callback
yeah,
where if you've been here any amount of time, you're like, oh, that does sound familiar. I
mm,
remember that.
mhm.
And so, but it just again because love is a major theme in Scripture, so there's no sense in changing those things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So as you're reading through this passage, how many times are you typically consuming it to understand the big theme and as you're digesting it, what
How
does
many
that look
times do
like
I
for you?
read through it?
Hmm.
Several times, and then I even listen to it.
Do you?
Like on kind of on a walk, and if there is somebody that's preached a good message, I don't listen to well, I wouldn't say I wouldn't listen to bad messages, but I want to see in these passages, not a lot of people are like that I would even like follow have really preached on these,
Mm, okay.
so it makes it sometimes challenging to go, okay, well, obviously I have commentaries and all of that, so but yeah, like how do you communicate, and even if they've preached on it, they've not connected it to mission.
Right.
Because this is where I want people to realize that this love, it's actually connected to mission. And that's why I was trying to show the idea of Leah and Judah and Rachel and Joseph. It's literally connected to mission.
Well, that's where that whole redemption comes in. I mean, that is the big aha moment of this story. It it's the payoff of slogging through all of the messiness,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Because it shows that God has shown us love actually by even showing them love.
Yeah, I mean, it just becomes a comparison of who mankind is and who God is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so let's dig into we'll see how far we get with these four wrong loves and one right love. Well, actually, let me ask you, did you, knowing that this was Mother's Day and knowing how challenging this passage was, did you consider not doing this passage on Mother's Day and doing
Oh, I
something a
thought it
little
would be a
more
great passage for Mother's Day.
because it had love in it?
Well, because it had mothers in it.
Yeah, but they were you know,
Well, but I mean, again, like here's what I know about moms. I think is that they feel like they're constantly getting it wrong. I mean, I don't know if I've ever met a mom that thought she was just killing it. I mean, seriously, like, because moms are harder on themselves than anybody.
yeah, yeah.
And so that's where I'm like, I
Mm.
thought it was really good to understand, well, what kind of love do you have that's driving you? Because I do think, and that's why I spend just a little bit of time on the works based love, because I think moms are hard workers. And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
they tend to love that way. I mean, we see it with Leah, and then you see with Rachel. I mean, I mean, people have loved her all of her life. So, in some sense, like, you know, she's probably walked around with her nose up in the air. Going, look at me. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
great looking, but then the one thing that she didn't have, she wanted, which prevented her from actually loving her sister well.
Mm.
So that's where I thought it really, again, on Mother's Day, knowing that I thought we would have Mother's Day tends to be a little bit larger than other. I thought this would be a great. Now, I didn't think about the backside of it. Going, my people, if people have this is the one message they're coming into. Man, this is and they're not familiar with the Bible. It'd be like, what is in the Bible?
Right. Yeah, you decided not to just not to just rely on this, touchy-feely feel-good story, but like, we're digging into it. But that's where we talked about the payoff of we get to see the incredible nature of who God is by recognizing how wicked and broken we are.
Yeah, yeah,
So one big word for this week, I'm assuming it's love.
yeah.
Okay. I don't want to force you to do a different word. You'll get mad at me. So
No,
we'll
I mean,
leave it
well,
at
it
love.
was hard to pick another word when that word is like all over the passage.
Well, I would feel guilty pushing you to a different word. You already went through the whole process of love. So I'll let you have love this week.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
How about a big takeaway?
Oh, a big takeaway. I think the green with envy was fun to kind of unpack that one. I
Mm,
don't think I've ever kind of thought of it that way.
mm,
Uh, you talk about works based, love a lot. I mean, because people have works based salvation, so they're working for God to love them and let them in.
yeah.
So you've had that, but again, applied to this situation. But I think green with envy
Mm,
was probably a big takeaway.
yeah. Yeah, that's great. Obviously for me, the connection to Judah and Joseph, and then even uh, you comparing Joseph as the preserver. I had never really connected Joseph as the preserver, and then Judah, the line to Jesus, and then how each of them came from Leah and Rachel, and because you can be reading through Genesis and you're reading through. I mean, the story of Joseph ends up covering a whole chunk of Genesis, what, 38 to 50,
30 at
um,
37 to 50.
37 to 50. So you could just assume, oh yeah, this is, the line of Jesus is going to come from Joseph.
Yeah. Well, and then I did, I was trying to remember too, because Judah played such a pivotal role in keeping Joseph alive. Um, because they actually wanted to kill him. And then what you see, Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and
Mm.
not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." And then his brothers agreed. So Judah's kind of stepping in and going, "Hey, listen, guys, let's not." And so the very one that he saved is the very one who saved him.
This is why I love how we're connecting this to mission, because I think often when we get confused or misunderstood about um, a passage in the Bible or a story in the Bible, it can often be clarified by us zooming out and understanding the larger context. And when we can connect that to and see, because you can read that story without understanding the larger context and just, who cares if it's Judah? It could just be any of them, right? It's just one of his brothers are standing up to him. Okay, that's cool. But when you understand the larger picture of the line of Judah, and then how, the messed up nature of Leah and Rachel and their feud, and how each of them were from each line, there's just so much more complexity. And I think we can, if we're honest with each other, we can relate to the brokenness.
Yeah.
And it allows us to even have a deeper posture of gratefulness,
Yeah.
of who God is and what He's done for us.
Yeah.
So let's look at this first one, this idolatrous love. So Jacob and Rachel, idolatrous love. I love at the end you gave us these diagnostic questions, and it seems like you connected each of these questions with one of the points. So for the idolatrous love, the question was, who do I love more than God?
Yeah.
Which is a great way to summarize the idolatrous love, and this is what we saw with Jacob and Rachel. And you said the idolatrous love is wrong love that wrecks your life, because you're contingent on that person never changing. That was one of those points. So talk a little bit more about that. The fact that when we enter into relationships and marriage, that we're always changing, and if we put that person on a pedestal and think they're not going to change, it's going to go poorly for us.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's so many ways to apply this, and again, just didn't have time. I mean, you can apply it actually to parenthood. There are a lot of parents that center their lives around the world of their child. I mean, we talked about this in our series, How to Lose Your Family in 10 Easy Ways.
Yeah.
So when their child gets older, goes off to college, in some sense, never comes back, their entire life now has changed, because for 18, 19, 20 years they've been in the home, and now there's this huge change. And then they're like, I don't know who I am, and then if they've really centered around the child, they don't even know who they are anymore in a marriage. And so again, their child was the center of the world. Now the center of the world is completely changed, and now they are disappointed. Now they're even confused. Who am I? You can apply this to the realm of culture and America. This is the reason why many conservative Christians are really upset right now, because they've had this idolatrous love to the nation. And so in their minds that we are supposed to be one nation under God, because that's what was created. They don't realize that was created in the the 1900s, 1950s. We didn't have that motto, and up until then. But in their mind, it's like the culture has changed. They had this idolatrous love towards the culture, and when they wake up and they realize that the culture is no longer Rachel, that it's Leah, they're bent out of shape and they're mad. And that's where you cannot show the love of Christ. You cannot be a conduit by which redeeming love flows through you when you are attached to idolatrous love. And so those are just two other examples of how this plays out in other realms of life in this idolatrous love thing. Because again, you're placing godlike responsibilities on that object that is the center of your life.
Yeah, and that's where that faith framework comes in again. 5 elements of faith, and right in the center, what's the object of your faith? And that's the idea, is if anything is in the center of the faith other than Jesus, then it's idolatry.
Yeah. And here's the thing, and here's how you can, here's how you know if you love something more than God, is if that thing does not exist, you're angry. It's not just disappointed. I mean, like Jacob, it's not like he wakes up to Leah and goes, oh, well, you're different, but hey, okay, I'll go with it. No, I mean, like, it's not like he's like that disappointed. I mean, he's hot. He's getting out. He's going. He's getting out of the tent. Hopefully, he put some clothes on. But he's going out of the tent, and he's going to go find Laban, because he's like, why did you deceive? He's really, really angry. because again, Rachel was the center of his world, and when Rachel was no longer there, and he saw it was Leah, he's wrecked. And so that's the reason why like you can be discouraged, and you can be in some sense disappointed with the way things may happen in our culture, or you can grieve the loss of when I say the loss of a season of your life. I mean, because that's what happens.
Yeah.
Children, like, you can grieve that. I'm not saying don't grieve that. That's a season, which is why I wrote Pivot with Purpose. So
There you go.
just a little plug there, a shameless plug, by the way, because it's a resource to help you process seasons of change. But that's the thing, because we're going to have seasons of change, and when those seasons change, if you get bent out of shape, that just shows you what you were clinging to in that previous season.
Pivot with Purpose is so good.
So
every single chapter. I'm on, I think 8.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So I go through that faith framework.
You do.
Yeah. The only thing I wish that they would have done, the publishers, is like, I gave them the actual framework, so they just put it in writing. I'm like, man, we need pictures.
I was wondering about that. I was surprised that the picture wasn't there.
Oh, I had, like, my first draft, I had pictures of everything.
Got it.
So,
well, you can save that for your book with charts, right? You want to do that one day. Yeah, I actually was talking with a congregant a week ago about the faith framework, and then the next day I was reading that, so I had sent it to him. I said, "Look at this chapter," because we were talking about that, right? Like, what's at the center? What's at the center of your faith, and if it's not, this can help you diagnose what's at the center. All right, so let's look at the second one, Leah and Jacob. This is the work-based love, and the diagnostic question is, whose love am I trying to earn? You talked about that a little bit, and how this can play out with moms, but the work-based love is wrong love that wounds you and wears you out. Yeah, I think for all of us, the wearing you out, we can so relate to that piece.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, so note this. I mean, it's very similar to idolatrous love, but you're now working for it. But at the center, it's you. So again, this is where, because you feel like you've got to work for it. So in some sense, the idol is you. You just feel like you've got to, in some sense, hook the fish, hook the love, so that they reciprocate that love back. I mean, it is very similar to works-based salvation, where you're like, God, look at what I'm doing for you. Listen, I'm not cussing, I'm not getting drunk, I'm being good, I'm being moral, I'm not cheating on my spouse, I'm loving my kids well. Like, come on, I'm doing all these things for you. I mean, you ought to be able to let me in. Well, you think, and here's the thing, you think you are doing it for him to love you back, when the whole idea is that you're doing it so that he or anybody else loves you. Who's the center? You. So, and then, like, that's Leah. I mean, Leah's the center. But she's not receiving the love back that she wants to. And again, this goes down. I mean, again, this not just goes down in, like, marriages. It does happen with children, and I did, kind of use the season of life, like teenagers. And again, it's not every single family that has teenagers. Teenagers don't, not saying again that they don't show love, but that's usually the kind of season where they're trying to figure out themselves too. So they're not usually all touchy-feely like they are when they are, 5, 6, 7. They're not crawling up in your lap, Again, typically, I'm not going to sit there and say, well, it's every family. But I can tell you right now, like, I mean, we got 18-year-olds never home, and I want to take offense to that, But I mean, she's 18. She got friends, and so I don't need to take offense to that, But I do know that there are parents that do take offense to that. I want my child to love me, and they got to love me in this way, and it's kind of like, they're kind of, it's not to say they don't love you, and it's not to say they don't even respect you. It's just, man, they're older. It's a different season. They're trying to process a lot of things. They're trying to understand who they are, what they're supposed to be doing. Like, I mean, so that this could play out in vocation, where I'm doing all this thing. I'm busting my hump for my boss, and she's not noticing me, and so then you get angry because you're not being seen the way you want to be seen. You don't feel like there's appreciation. You don't feel like there is even awareness, and then it could be like, well, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop working. Well, here's the thing. Well, no, because that's works-based love. Because if you do that, then you're actually not reflecting the redeeming love. Because you know that God's loved you so that you can show up in your vocation and actually do excellent work, regardless of whether or not your boss sees you or not.
Yeah.
Because that's what Paul talks about. Is that you work for another person. You don't really just work for your boss. You work for the King of glory, right? So, so that's another way that works-based love, plays a huge role. And again, that's where like working for love isn't true love if it's because it's transactional. So when you don't get what you've been looking for, in some sense, your love ceases too. And that's where some marriages, people walk away. Listen, he didn't respect me. He didn't love me. He didn't care for me. He's a loser. And so I had to leave. That's transactional then, because again, and I understand what people would say is that, well, they ought to love you back. I'm not saying that they shouldn't love you back. But if we're looking at wrong-based loves and right-based love, I'm glad that God didn't cease to love us when we walked away in rebellion towards him. So, and then if we're redeemed, that's the kind of love we show.
Yeah, I mean, these four wrong loves are just in one big bucket of how sin affects our relationships. And it's just manifested in different ways based on our experiences and our history and our interactions with others and our personality and what we deem as important and not important. And
well, if you look at let's see. All right, let's take the story of Jacob, Leah, Rachel, and let's add a 21st century dimension to it. And again, I did that through the examples, but I'll even call it more like a 21st century story.
Okay.
So Jacob thinks, again, by all accounts, he thinks he marries Rachel, smitten with Rachel, but he wakes up with Leah. And again, this is what happens in the 21st century. You marry somebody, and this is, and by year 7, I mean, this is the stats. By year 7, you're divorced. Why? Because they've already changed. You've already become two different people. And that's where you see where, hey, listen, we were just growing apart. We really didn't talk about whether or not we wanted children. We didn't really talk about where we wanted to live. Didn't really talk about, and so when life continued to go on, you grew apart, and that distance became the gap by which you pursued divorce. Because again, the other spouse became Leah, not Rachel. So again, that happens in the 21st century. You see the works-based, element too, that happens. This is where they put they really did work to snag them, during the dating period. I mean, they were pulling out all the stops, like, oh my gosh, man, this is very romantic. This is very, you're pursuing me, like we're going on dates, and then life happens. And then you have children. well, she just, I mean, we just didn't have intimacy the way we used to have intimacy. Well, yeah, she got 3 kids, man. Like, come on. Like, you ain't 21 anymore. So, but nevertheless, so, and then, well, he stopped pursuing me, blah, 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 blah. And then in his mind, like, and so here's the thing, when you didn't know it at first because y'all are loving each other very well, from a works based perspective. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not attracted to one another. Doesn't mean that you don't have similarities or commonalities with one another. Psychologically though, you're like, man, you got a lot of love being given and reciprocated, and then when that love stops, guess what happens? You're like, well, I'm gonna stop trying. Well, and then when you stop trying, guess what you do? You kill the marriage. Because at the end of the day, marriage is a living organism. You've got to feed it. And so, but again, if you had this works based element, then then if you start seeing that they're not feeding what you want, and then you're not feeding what they want, guess what happens? Work based. All right. So, I mean, that's 21st century. That's how it works here. But in that culture, you just didn't get a divorce.
Right.
In that culture, women were viewed as property, and so Leah was stuck. So I mean, could you imagine being stuck in that marriage? And now in an American culture, we ain't got to be stuck; we free. So so again, their culture is broken, our culture is broken.
Yeah, you talked about this progression of disappointment leads to distance, and distance leads to divorce. Talk about how you've seen that through the years with people.
How have I seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, just kind of what I'm saying is that we're becoming two different people.
And I think to that point, as you become two different people, the distance grows unless we fight for it.
Well,
right?
Again, it goes back to the center. The center is what anchors you. So again, if you have an idolatrous center that changes, you're no longer anchored. If you have a works-based center that's you and you're not getting what you want, then you no longer have an anchoring center, because what you want, you're not getting. You've got to go get it somewhere else. So you are going, and that's where a lot of times you have spouses that cheat on one another because they're not getting that at home. And so they need that, or they think that they need that because, hey, listen, I'm the center. I need this. I'm not getting this. I'm gonna go find it somewhere else. So that's again, whatever your center is will determine whether or not you have something that is stable in your life.
And if we have something in the center of our faith that can change, that's dangerous.
Yeah, because you are on shifting sand at that point. Because you're not being. It goes back to now the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus says that the one who builds his house on a rock can withstand the storm. Those who build their house on the sand, man, the wind and the waves will tear it down. And again, that's what we're seeing here, is that if you build your life on anything other than redeeming love, it is bound to wound you, wreck you, or war you. You're at war with somebody.
Well said. So let's look at this third one, Green with Envy, Lee and Rachel. That's the question, why am I insecure? It's interesting how so many of these are just really connected to each other. I mean, I feel like we're talking about each one of them before we even get to it. But that's just the nature of how these are so interconnected. And obviously we have 4 characters, but then the way that they interact with each other is so intertwined and unhealthy, obviously.
Yeah.
So let's see. I wrote down. You said our marriage. Okay, so as I'm in service, I'm always listening for the moment when you say something and there are audible, and I'll notice even people that aren't taking notes are like, scrambling to like write that down. So that happened with this quote when you said, "Our American culture, we are green with envy. We begrudge people, we resent, gossip, slander, then exploit weakness." And that seemed to just really hit home. I mean, you talked about um, how often that happens, how easily that happens for us on social media, how we can just open it up and we're just immediately green with envy in it. And that seemed to strike a chord with the people sitting around me.
Yeah. Well, like so, I mean, in my little handwritten notes, when I said those who have what I don't are enemies. So if you think somebody has a better marriage that you want, you don't really like them. Those who
What?
are
Why is that? That is crazy. It
because
happens so easily and quickly.
well, because like this happened to me. I mean, like when I was a younger pastor, I was an insecure pastor. I wanted what other, and so here's the thing: I would put down. Because I was insecure. So I couldn't appreciate, or I couldn't even see the value in what some of these pastors brought, because I'm like insecure. So like those who
Yeah.
are seen as more successful, I mean, it's hard for you to like them. Maybe you don't have kids, you want to have kids. And so, those who do have kids, I mean, this could happen. One of the things that I did here, like when you lose a parent, you have a tendency, or you could develop a green with envy with other people who still have their parents around and who talk about it, and so um, so that does happen. And then and this is what really is the driver, though, is the insecurity. Is basically what you're
Mm.
saying is that you can't love yourself and where God has you. Like you can't be content with what you have and what God has given you. I mean, there's that insecurity. And so as a result, someone else's blessing threatens your value. So someone else's blessing threatens what you perceive as your less than value. Like you feel like I need this to be valued. I don't have this, but you do. So your blessing actually threatens my value. So now I perceive you as a threat of what you have because you have what I don't have.
And so much of this, the diagnostic questions, and as we were just digging in, so much of it seems to be trying to highlight and uncover for us the unhealth that may be in our life without us realizing it. And
Well,
maybe we do realize it, but I think so often we no.
you would hope that we would realize it, but I don't think we realize it.
I think we live life not examining our feelings and actions and the way we are reacting, and I think it's just too easy not to.
Well, what we have done is that we have normalized discontentment. We have normalized discontentment, and therefore we have normalized sin in this regard.
When you say we, our American culture?
Yeah, well, but the
Yeah.
church has co-opted it. So our culture has normalized discontentment. Like, hey, yeah, it's okay to be discontent. It's okay to look at in some sense, look at somebody and go, man, I would love to have their looks. I mean, think about our marketing, like our marketing culture. Look at somebody, I really would like to have your lifestyle. Man, I really would love to have your health. I mean, my goodness, like I would love to be healthier, than I am, but I really love to be healthy like you. So man, you seem like you have a really great husband. My husband's a loser. I wish I had that. And so here's the thing: it's like when you live that way, you develop such an insecure personhood where you're looking at all of these areas in your life and you're really not secure
Hmm.
in yourself
Hmm.
and in who God is to you and what God has already given you. And so that's where I'd say our culture, we have the Christian community has co-opted American culture where we have normalized discontentment, where Paul talks about that we have to learn contentment in all things.
Hmm.
Because again, you cannot show redemptive love to somebody that you are envious and jealous of.
How,
Huh?
sorry, how is the church normalized this?
Because we play into that. Like we think, we think, when I say normalized it, we've allowed the normalization of the culture
without us pushing back. And
Well,
yeah.
yeah, because we have not really truly taught a healthy gospel understanding that
Hmm.
we are secure in Jesus. Like we don't need what anybody like. We don't have to be envious. I mean, this is part. I mean, this is one of the commandments, right? Thou shalt not covet. Oh, but we do a very good job at coveting here in America. You know,
Hmm.
we covet other people's churches. I wish we had that church. Well, I wish we had that kind of. You know, it's kind of like,
Hmm.
won't you be content with what God has given you? Now, that does not mean. So, and here's the thing, contentment doesn't need to lead to laziness either, because that's the
Hmm.
other side. Apathy and laziness, which we will talk about in the fall with our series on stress and pressure.
Okay.
Because if you're apathetic and you're lazy, you don't even care. Well, God wants you to care because He cares. What He doesn't want you to do is care to the point of envy and jealousy of others, wishing that you had what they had. Because what you're then saying is that God is not enough for you,
Hmm.
and what God has given you is not enough. It's
Yeah.
what Leah and Rachel are constantly doing is that they don't have enough. Rachel doesn't have enough. I mean, her beauty isn't enough. Other people looking at her is enough. Jacob's not enough. I mean, because obviously
Yeah.
Jacob's showing her affection. Obviously Jacob's attached to her. Obviously Jacob wants to go in her tent more often than Leah's, but that's not enough. That isn't enough. She needs kids just because Leah has kids. I
Hmm.
got to have kids, and then it's
Yeah.
not enough for Leah at that point when Rachel starts having kids through her servant. It's not enough. It's not enough for Leah just to have her 4 kids at that point. Now she's got to get in. She's got to get involved in the game again. And so, hey,
Hmm.
here's my servant. Won't you have I mean, so it's just this. I mean, and now there's this competition between sisters. There's this comparison between sisters, and now even blood relatives can't even love each other because there's this competition, very similar to Jacob and Esau. Jacob stole everything that Esau had. Well, now they hate each other because Jacob wanted what was due Esau. Esau really didn't care until he didn't have it, and then he cared. And then he's like, I'm going to kill you because now I'm envious of what you have. But if I eliminate you, then I can get back what is mine. I mean, again, you know
Hmm.
what? And this is part of where it's so important to understand that this missional family, they are the representatives of all humanity. This is what God, this is what God has intervened into the broken world to do, to save sinners, which just because you are redeemed doesn't mean that you are perfect. And so we are completely still
Hmm.
flawed. Where now, though, because God has graciously intervened in our life, we are on this journey of actually learning how broken and jacked up we are and how good and gracious God is.
Amen. All right. So that leads us to this fourth one of Laban. Laban to everyone, and it's this self-driven love. The diagnostic question is, do I use people to make my life better? And you even kind of talked about it, but the quote I wrote down is, Laban does to Jacob what Jacob did to Isaac. I mean, it's just fascinating how you could look at that in a vacuum and just say, Laban is this awful human being. How sad is that for Jacob? And then you zoom out and you're like, that sucker did the same thing.
He did the same thing. So he's getting a dose of his own medicine, and that's part of like, and so if you think about it, like there's no laws in this country, in this land. I mean, they make up their own laws.
Hmm.
So could you imagine living in a lawless land and everybody's doing that? Because Jacob did that. So could you imagine living in a society where
Hmm.
there's nothing but Laban's?
Yeah.
Living in a society where there's nothing but Rachel's and Leah's, living in a society where there's nothing but Leah and Jacob's, living in a society where there's not like, I mean, you have a very jacked up, dysfunctional, dark, chaotic society. That's humanity.
And this isn't to strangers, this is to family.
Yeah. So if you think about take American culture. Now again, I'm processing and filtering what we see here with our American culture. So what I'm about to say, it doesn't mean that I'm against it. Okay. So, but take an American culture that's formed around a free capitalistic society. One of the negatives or the cons to that is that most people are driven by greed.
Mm.
So capitalism. So when you get a society like America that's driven by the Labans of the world, of course you're going to exploit. Like it's just part of, So this is where in a healthy society, it's really good to have laws so that Labans can't just do whatever the heck they want to do. But then you don't want the other forms where you're so stifled. Innovation and creativity and entrepreneurship is completely stifled because basically the government is the god and will tell you everything. But this isn't. So again, the whole reason why we have laws, and again, God gave laws to Israel for two particular reasons: one, to govern them in the land, and then two, to become a tutor to show them just how depraved and messy and sinful they really are. Because they didn't live within even their framework. So this is why it's so important for laws to even be had, so that you can't exploit women just however you want to exploit, so that you can't do dirty business deals just however you want to do dirty business deals, because we got a lot of Labans out there running around.
Mm. Well said. And this is just another way that our sin is manifested.
So this is part of where, sometimes I'm like, man, this is why I'm glad that we have extra takes, because I can never get to that in a sermon unless I just microscopically broke those four down into a sermon series, which, hey, you know what? I might do one of these days, because it might be good to go back and, hey, we're going to do a whole series around these five loves, the five love languages.
The five loves. How about that?
Of languages.
There you go. You might run into some copyright issues.
Well, he ain't got no. He doesn't own the market on love languages.
Around the five love languages, he might.
Not biblical love languages.
Do you know he has like 90 something books? He has a lot of books.
A lot of books, huh?
He has a lot of books.
He's 90. I guess he wrote one a year.
Don't quote me on that, but there was when he was here, there was a whole booklet.
A whole booklet. And there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about the bad news enough. Let's talk about some good news. God with everybody. God to everyone. So this is the redeeming love. And this progression of Leah to Judah to Jesus, and then Rachel to Joseph in this preservation. Holy cow. What an amazing reveal. I mean, when Leah got to the point where she had Judah, that was the turning point of her praising God.
Yeah, and I think that was her turning point of transformation. I don't know to be honest, I don't know if Rachel ever got there. We do know Leah got there. And how do we know that Leah got there? I think it's from this point in time in her life where she turns to the Lord and praises Him, and all of the children that she actually has afterwards are actually positive children, even with the servants' children.
Yeah, because it says, where we stopped, it says she, then she stopped having kids. That was 4, but then that was more just a pause, because then after that she had.
So she has Gad through Zilpah, which means good fortune. She has Asher, which means happy. Then she'll have 2 more kids on her own, Ishmael, which means reward, and Zebulun, which means honor. So Reuben means misery, Simeon means hears, Levi means attached, because she's hoping. But then Judah means praise. And then when you see after she praises, good fortune, happy, reward, honor. I mean, this lady has been at least changed in some regard.
Wow. And so we see that transformation in Leah, and you're saying we don't see that with Rachel.
Well, we don't. And then Rachel says, God has taken away my disgrace. Okay, so then that was through Joseph. God has taken away my disgrace. Then the other child that she will have is Benjamin. Now, but she's going to die during childbirth, and she wants to name him Ben-Onai, which means son of my sorrow. But then Jacob's going to go, no, he's going to be Benjamin, son of my right hand. So so it just seems like she's just not a happy camper.
Mm.
And then here's the biggest one is Rachel will be buried on the road near Bethlehem, and Leah is actually going to be buried within the cave that Sarah, Abraham, Isaac, Rebecca, and Jacob will be buried in.
So Rachel doesn't get there.
So Rachel doesn't get there. Now, the reason, again, the reason
Interesting.
why is the line. And so Leah is the one who has Judah, which will become the line of which the Messiah will come. So this is where that cave plays such a huge role of who's buried in that cave, because who's buried in that cave is the line, is the redemptive line. So, and then Rachel, the other reason why is Rachel, and we'll see this next week, is when Jacob's trying to flee Laban, Rachel goes into her daddy's tent and takes all of the household gods and brings them with her. So it's kind of like, what are you doing? So Jacob, I mean, that shows you that there is this synchronism going on, meaning that there's this blending of basically religions and gods with Laban and his family. Rachel's taking the gods with her.
Fascinating. Well, and this final principle for redeeming love is receiving the right love releases you to love redemptively.
Yeah.
So receiving the right love transforms us.
Well, it does. I mean, it transforms us and continues to transform. It continues to transform us. There's a question that somebody had, because the text says that when God saw that Leah was not loved, he basically opened up her womb and she had kids, and then Rachel remained childless for some time. And so somebody's like, so why does God open Leah's womb but not Rachel's? And is God unfairly withholding love from Rachel? I mean, it's an honest question, there. But here's where, and this is where I want people to realize. All right, so there's a lot of ways to answer this. So the Bible, even though it doesn't use the word, the Bible never uses the word Trinity. The Bible just speaks of the triune God, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, but you never see the word Trinity. Another element of when I say theological language would be grace, and then special grace and common grace. Now, Jesus even teaches us this element of common grace, where he teaches that God allows it to rain on the just and the unjust, particularly around crops. So God's the one who brings the rain for crops to grow. Now, you could have an atheist farmer, or you could have a pagan farmer that worshiped other deities and saw the deities of the sun and the moon and the rain, and so doing dances and sacrificing to idols and thinking that it's that deity. Nevertheless, if that rain came and that rain was good, that made the crops grow, that's common grace. God shows a lot of common grace in the world, because and this is what the Bible teaches in James, if there's anything good that happens in your life, if there's anything good that comes into your life, if there's anything good that your life produces, that is actually God's grace in your life.
Amen.
Now, so when you look at Leah and Rachel, there's a lot of common grace right there, because, I mean, you even have Rachel, there's a lot of things going for her. And that even the text talks about the things that are going for her. I mean, man, she's well liked, well loved. She's lovely. I mean, people think she's a knock. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, Leah, on the other hand, there's not a lot going for her. The one thing that's going for her now is that God has been gracious to open up her womb to make her fruitful. But what Genesis and what the Bible is trying to really teach us is that we all deserve chaos, darkness, depravity, deadness. We don't deserve anything good. And if there's anything that good comes into our life, that is God at work in our life. And so when you look at, so Leah doesn't have anything going for her. And so God actually shows grace to her to have something go well for her. And that's God, not her. And so that's where you have that. And then eventually God's going to allow Rachel to experience childbearing as well. And he's going to open up her womb. Now, here's the thing that I want people to also realize in terms of the opening up of wombs here with Rachel and Leah. They are married to whom? Jacob. God has promised to Abraham to enlarge, to multiply his descendants so that they become as numerous as the stars in the sky. He's going to make them into a great name. He's going to make them into a great nation. And that through them, all of the families of the earth will be blessed. Well, here's the idea. If you are connected to Jacob, it ain't because of who Jacob is, it's because of who Jacob's God is. And so the element of opening up the wombs and making them fruitful is this idea of being fruitful and multiplying so that the line might increase. So that's what God's doing here, is that he's actually not only showing grace to individual women, he's actually showing grace to Jacob through fulfilling the promise that he has made. So God is a promise keeper, while at the same time a gracious and merciful God to individuals who don't deserve it.
Yeah, and I think that's an important understanding, that we can't understand what's happening with whether they're having kids or not without understanding the larger promise. And that's what the whole series is about, is connecting it back to mission. So zooming out and understanding that this is one piece of the story, but it's part of the larger grand narrative, and to understand what's going on here with Rachel and Leah, and why it's so important for them to have sons. We have to understand the promises of Jacob all the way back to Abraham.
Yeah, all connected, it's all flowing out. And then at the end of the day, right, is so when you look at God's people, if they can not only understand what wrong love produces, what right love produces, but if they can actually become the conduits by which God produces redemptive love through them, guess what happens? They become a distinction. They become a distinct people in any kind of culture, because any kind of culture is going to have those 4 broken love languages that they're living out. But there would be a people in the midst of their culture actually living out a different love ethic. Like that's mission. That's mission. A love ethic that says God completes me. A love ethic that says God has freely and graciously and mercifully actually shown me grace, so I don't have to work for love anymore. We can, in some sense, try to outdo one another in love because we've already been loved. And God, I have everything that I need. I'm not envious of you. I'm praising God that God has shown you grace. I'm praising God that God has done that in your life. I'm secure with what God has given me, and even what he hasn't given me. And then I'm actually understanding that I don't have to necessarily go to work being deceitful and manipulative and build my own life, because God is actually the one building my life. He's the one that is the promise keeper. He's the one that has taken me to a final conclusion. He's the one who is working in and through me. And so guess what he's done? He's freed me to love selflessly, not selfishly, hoping that I'd build a great life for myself, that he's the one building the life for me, for his glory, my good, and others' good. So,
amen. All right, great week. That's a great place for us to end.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you, Northland family and friends, for tuning in to another episode of Extra Takes. Until next week, blessings.
Thanks for listening to Extra Takes. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you won't miss a single episode.